Hi, this is Jennifer Hansen from Stitch Diva Studios, and today I want to introduce you to the lucet. The lucet is an old tool back from the Viking medieval times. It's gorgeous. It kind of looks like a fork. I've heard it referred to as a fork. Kind of even looks like maybe an instrument of torture, but hey, that's part of the fun of working with the lucet. What I'm going to show you today is lucets. You can use the lucet to make chords. And I'm going to show you how to make lucet cord with the Wool Tree Mill lucet. We have this lucet on our website, and if you purchase it, one of the cool things it comes with is a really handy kind of laminated card to get you started. I'm going to walk you through just one method of making cord with the lucet. There's tons and tons of methods with beads. If you just do a Google search online, you're going to find a ton of them, but this is a great way to get started with the lucet, and this is the method that is shown in the card that comes with the Wool Tree Mill lucet that's available. So this is how you get started making the cord with the lucet, and I am going to get in a little closer. Not that you really need to see me get in closer because it's pretty self-explanatory once we get going, but I'm always going to be working on this right side fork, okay? Right horn, fork, tine, whatever you want to call it. And what I'm going to do to start out is I'm going to take the lower fiber, and a good fiber to start out with when you just get started is like a worsted weight. I found that I've tried making cord with a number of different types of fibers, and I find at the very beginning like a worsted weight elastic yarn, like a wool, is really, really helpful. So I went ahead, I took that lower tine over, the lower thread over the tine, okay? Now I'm gonna take my fork and I'm gonna flip it to the left, and I'm gonna have my working yarn and make sure it lays over the top. So I've got a loop in my working yarn. My working yarn is on top, loop on the bottom. Then I'm just going to pull up my loop over my tine, twist again, kind of like hairpin lace where you keep twisting. Now check it out. So I'll have this little loop there, and when I pull this lower loop, it kind of closes that loop up, bring it over again. I'm continually adjusting my tension while I'm working. I'll bring it up. Now I'm going to pull this, and you see how I pull it towards the middle? And then when I pull this lower loop, you see how it closes that loop up right there? And now I have this huge loop, but I'm just gonna pull it a little. So I'm kind of constantly adjusting my tension as I'm making this cord, and it's really not that difficult. You just have to get used to making the right tension, and after you make one or two cords, it really is quite simple, and it is even easier if you use an elastic wool fiber. Fiber I'm using here is Freya semi-solid worsted weight. Creates a really pretty cord. And then after you've created a few cords, you know, with worsted weight and with an elastic fiber like a wool, or maybe even an acrylic, honestly, you could segue into the more inelastic fibers like cotton and hemp. But I found those were a little bit daunting to get started out with. So you can see how I'm constantly kind of adjusting this loop, making sure that this is roughly in the middle every time I work. And really, that's all there is to it. You keep turning the fork. This is kind of a slightly thick, thin yarn, so this would create a really rustic, thick, thin cord. And you can see that the cord that's coming up is super dense and strong. Now, as I mentioned at the beginning of the video, there are a ton of ways to make lucet cord. This is just one of them. And some of the ways don't create as dense of a cord. I've seen some really pretty cords incorporating beads. I'm going to stop for a second and just show you the cord that I've created here. Let me zoom into it. You can see that, is it focusing? Let me go back just a little bit. You can see that it's springy and square and really tough and strong. So how do you finish up? Suppose I kept going and I got my cord to the appropriate size, and now I wanted to finish up my work. How do I do that? Well, all you do is cut the cord and bring a loop over the tail of the cord, but this time just pull that tail through. And then pull it through on the other side. Now you have an end. And this is probably one of the smallest lucet cords ever, lucet cords. Some cool things to note about it, how I like to finish it up, and this is a little small, but how I like to finish it up is tie a knot at each end, or you could just trim it if you wanted to. But one way of finishing up is to just, that knot didn't work. It might take, there we go. And then cut off the tail. That's one way of finishing up a lucet cord. Another way of finishing up a lucet cord is to simply just cut off the tail. And one thing to note about these cords is you can trim them and they don't unravel. So again, you might want to cut a knot, do a knot, because the frays aren't very cosmetically pleasing. But they don't unravel. So you can create a really long cord and trim it and have no problem at all. This is a free pattern. This is a lucet cord I created in hemp, so a lace weight hemp yarn. And I tied them in a knot at the end, tied some beads. You see, really strong. This is a free pattern on our website for a little soap sachet to hang, soap saver to hang in your shower, and doesn't yuck up your soap dish, and it keeps your soap nice and dry, and it's nice and exfoliating to boot. So the lucet helps it hang. Lucet cord helps it hang. So that's an introduction to making cord with lucet. And again, it's the Wool Tree Mill lucet, available on our website. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial.